You think you know the Baltic Sea? Think again. What if everything you've been told about its origins is fundamentally wrong? This isn't just a body of water. It might be the drained remains of an unimaginable ancient ocean, a relic from a forgotten era that holds secrets about our planet's catastrophic past. Imagine a sea that wasn't always a sea, a massive ocean that once stretched across northern Europe before vanishing in a geological event so dramatic it reshaped an entire continent. Welcome back to Space Prime, where we explore the mysteries hidden beneath our feet and beneath our waters. Today, we're diving into one of geology's most controversial theories, the possibility that the Baltic Sea is actually the remnant of a vast ancient ocean that was drained by forces we're only beginning to understand. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew about our planet's past. The Baltic Sea's vanishing mystery. The Baltic Sea sits like a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit in the geological picture of northern Europe. This brackish body of water, surrounded by Scandinavia, Finland, and the Baltic states, has characteristics that have puzzled scientists for decades. Unlike other seas of similar size, the Baltic is remarkably shallow, with an average depth of only 55 meters, yet it covers an area larger than Germany. But here's where things get strange. The Baltic Sea is geologically very young. It has only existed for about 8,000 to 11,500 years, formed after the last ice age when glacial meltwater filled a massive depression in the Earth's crust. However, the depression itself tells a different story. The Baltic Basin is far too large, too perfectly formed, and too deep to be explained simply by glacial carving. The deeper underground consists of continental rocks, granites, gneisses, and sedimentary rocks, similar to the surrounding land masses, rather than the oceanic basalt crust found in true ocean floors. This suggests the Baltic sits on what was once dry land, but the scale of the depression implies something far more dramatic than simple glacial erosion. Traditional geology tells us the Baltic went through several phases: the Baltic Ice Lake, the Yoldia Sea, the Ancellus Lake, and finally the Litorina Sea before becoming the modern Baltic. Each phase involved connections and disconnections from the world's oceans due to post-glacial rebound, the land slowly rising after being compressed by massive ice sheets. But this standard explanation leaves too many questions unanswered. Why is the Baltic Basin so perfectly oval? Why are there mysterious underwater ridges and formations that seem to follow geometric patterns? And why do certain geological features around the Baltic appear to be much older than the accepted timeline suggests? The more scientists study the Baltic's unique characteristics, its unusual salinity gradients, its specific sediment layers, its strange magnetic anomalies, the more some researchers are beginning to question whether we've been looking at this wrong all along. What if the Baltic isn't a young sea formed by ice age meltwater, but rather the drained remnant of something much older and much larger? Echoes of a lost world. The geological evidence for an ancient Baltic Ocean begins with the basin itself. When you examine the seafloor topography using modern sonar mapping, patterns emerge that are difficult to explain through conventional glacial formation theories. The basin shows characteristics typically associated with much older oceanic structures: massive underwater ridges, perfectly circular depressions, and sediment layers that appear to predate the supposed formation of the sea. Core samples from the deepest parts of the Baltic reveal sediment layers that contain marine fossils from species that couldn't have lived in the brackish, enclosed environment we see today. These fossils suggest periods when the Baltic was connected to much larger oceanic systems, with full saltwater conditions and marine biodiversity that far exceeded anything possible in the current geographical setup. The ancient shoreline evidence is perhaps most compelling. Throughout Scandinavia and the Baltic region, researchers have identified what appear to be ancient beaches, wave-cut terraces, and coastal formations at elevations that make no sense if the Baltic has always been the small, shallow sea we know today. These features suggest water levels that would require a body of water many times larger than the current Baltic. Geological surveys have revealed massive underwater channels that extend far beyond the current Baltic borders, carved into the bedrock in patterns that suggest enormous water flows, not the gradual melting of glacial ice, but catastrophic drainage events that moved massive volumes of water in relatively short geological timeframes. Perhaps most intriguingly, magnetic surveys of the Baltic region show anomalies that align with much older geological structures. These magnetic signatures suggest that the current Baltic sits atop geological formations that are millions of years old, rather than the thousands of years that conventional theory proposes. The Ice Age lake theory struggles to explain these anomalies. If the Baltic were simply a depression filled with glacial meltwater, we shouldn't see evidence of ancient marine ecosystems, massive drainage channels, or magnetic signatures that predate the Ice Age by millions millions of years. Unveiling the drained ocean theory. The radical hypothesis gaining attention in certain geological circles proposes that the Baltic Sea is actually the remnant of a vast ancient ocean that once covered much of northern Europe. This ocean, potentially existing during warmer geological periods millions of years ago, was drained through catastrophic geological events that left behind only the deepest depression, what we now call the Baltic Sea. Proponents of this theory point to several mechanisms that could have caused such a dramatic drainage. Tectonic shifts could have opened massive fissures in the ocean floor, allowing the water to drain into underground caverns or be displaced by rising land masses. Alternatively, changes in sea level caused by global climate shifts could have gradually exposed the shallower areas of the ancient ocean, leaving only the deepest basins filled with water. The theory gains support from geological anomalies that are difficult to explain otherwise. Mysterious rock formations around the Baltic show signs of water erosion at elevations that would require sea levels hundreds of meters higher than anything recorded in human history. These formations appear to be ancient sea cliffs, carved by waves from an ocean that no longer exists. Underground surveys reveal vast networks of water-filled caverns and underground rivers throughout the Baltic region. These subterranean water systems are far too extensive to be explained by simple groundwater flow. They suggest a drainage system capable of handling massive volumes of water, the kind of system that would be necessary if an entire ocean had to find somewhere to go when the surface topology changed. Seismic studies show that the bedrock beneath the Baltic contains massive void spaces and structural weaknesses that could represent ancient drainage channels. These features appear to connect the Baltic basin to underground water systems that extend hundreds of kilometers inland, suggesting a vast network that could have channeled the water from a drained ocean deep underground. The timeline of this hypothetical drainage event remains hotly debated. Some researchers suggest it occurred during the Pliocene epoch around 3 to 5 million years ago, when global climate changes dramatically altered sea levels worldwide. Others propose more recent catastrophic events, possibly connected to the same forces that triggered the ice ages. Evidence beyond geology. The biological evidence supporting the ancient ocean theory is perhaps even more intriguing than the geological data. The Baltic Sea contains several endemic species, creatures found nowhere else on Earth, that seem oddly adapted to conditions that don't match the current environment. The Baltic ringed seal, for example, shows genetic markers that suggest isolation from other seal populations for much longer than the 8,000-year official age of the Baltic Sea. These seals appear to have evolved in isolation for hundreds of thousands of years, implying their ancestors were trapped in the Baltic during a much earlier period when it was separated from other oceanic systems. Similarly, certain fish species in the Baltic show evolutionary adaptations that suggest they've been isolated in this environment for far longer than conventional timelines allow. Genetic analysis indicates these populations diverged from their oceanic relatives during periods when the Baltic supposedly didn't exist as a separate water body. Archaeological evidence adds another layer to the mystery. Underwater surveys have revealed structures and formations on the Baltic seafloor that appear artificial but predate any known human settlements in the region. While these discoveries are often dismissed as natural rock formations, some show geometric patterns and construction techniques that are difficult to explain through natural processes. Ancient legends and folklore from cultures surrounding the Baltic contain remarkably consistent stories about a time when the sea was much larger, when great cities existed where there is now only water, and when catastrophic floods reshaped the entire region. Norse mythology speaks of Aegir's realm, a vast ocean that was drained by the gods. Slavic traditions tell of sunken kingdoms beneath the Baltic waters. While mythology isn't scientific evidence, the consistency of these flood and drainage stories across multiple cultures that had limited contact suggests they might be cultural memories of real geological events. Similar flood legends around the world often correlate with actual prehistoric catastrophes that shaped regional geography. Advanced sonar and LiDAR imaging of the Baltic seafloor continues to reveal anomalous formations that demand investigation. Perfectly circular structures, geometric patterns in the sediment, and formations that appear too regular to be natural all suggest the Baltic seafloor holds secrets that haven't been adequately explained by conventional geology. The unanswered depths. The scientific community remains deeply divided on the ancient ocean hypothesis. Mainstream geology points to the well-documented Ice Age formation of the Baltic and argues that the unusual features can be explained through complex but natural glacial processes. They emphasize that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the ancient ocean theory still lacks the definitive proof needed to overturn established models. Critics argue that the sediment cores, while containing ancient marine fossils, can be explained by by earlier connections between the Baltic and the ocean during interglacial periods. They suggest that the magnetic anomalies and unusual rock formations are simply artifacts of the region's complex geological history, shaped by multiple ice ages and tectonic movements over millions of years. However, the theory's proponents continue to gather evidence that challenges conventional explanations. Recent deep-core drilling projects have revealed sediment layers that appear to show multiple cycles of ocean formation and drainage, suggesting the Baltic region has experienced dramatic hydrological changes many times throughout its geological history. Ongoing research projects are using increasingly sophisticated technology to map the Baltic's hidden features. Submarine robots equipped with advanced sensors are discovering new underwater formations that don't fit established models. Ground-penetrating radar is revealing the extent of underground water systems that connect to the Baltic basin. International research collaborations are planning ambitious deep drilling projects that could reach the oldest sediment layers beneath the Baltic. These cores could contain definitive evidence of ancient oceanic conditions or confirm the conventional Ice Age formation theory. The results of these projects, expected within the next decade, could finally settle the debate. Climate change is adding urgency to this research. As sea levels rise and weather patterns change, the Baltic's unique ecosystem is under threat. Understanding its true origins isn't just academic curiosity. It could be crucial for predicting how the Baltic will respond to future environmental changes. Secrets beneath the waves. The mystery of the Baltic Sea's origins represents something larger than a single geological puzzle. It's a reminder of how much we still don't know about our own planet's history. If the ancient ocean theory proves correct, it would revolutionize our understanding of how quickly and dramatically Earth's geography can change. The implications extend beyond the Baltic itself. If entire oceans can be drained and refilled on geological timescales shorter than previously believed, what other lost worlds might be hidden beneath our current seas and lakes? The theory suggests that Earth's surface has been far more dynamic and changeable than conventional geology assumes. Future expeditions planned for the next decade will use cutting-edge technology to probe the Baltic's deepest secrets. Autonomous underwater vehicles will map every square meter of the seafloor. Deep drilling projects will extract core samples from depths never before reached. Advanced dating techniques will provide precise timelines for the Baltic's geological history. The debate over the Baltic's origins also highlights the evolving nature of scientific understanding. Theories once considered fringe or impossible sometimes become accepted science when new evidence emerges. The continental drift theory, now fundamental to geology, was once dismissed as preposterous by the scientific establishment. Whether the Baltic Sea is a young glacial lake or the remnant of an ancient drained ocean, it continues to hold secrets that challenge our assumptions about Earth's past. The mysterious formations on its seafloor, the anomalous sediment layers in its depths, and the strange biological communities that call it home all suggest that this seemingly familiar body of water is far more extraordinary than it appears. As we develop better technology and deeper understanding, we may discover that Earth's history is filled with lost oceans, drained seas, and vanished worlds that existed long before human civilization. The Baltic might be just the beginning, a window into a planet that has experienced changes so dramatic they reshape continents and drain entire oceans. The next time you look at a map of the Baltic Sea, remember that you might be looking at the last remnant of a vast ancient ocean, drained by forces so powerful they reshaped northern Europe. In our quest to understand the cosmos, we sometimes forget that our own planet still holds mysteries as profound as anything we might find among the stars.